The computer models at this time are forecasting two significant snowstorms to impact the Midwest and the Northeast within the next 7 days. If we were to take a look at the latest depiction of the European model at this time, we do see that the jet stream is rather straightened out. However, as soon as this trough coming off the California coast moves into the midsection of the country, we're of course going to see an unstable environment develop as a result of the plenty of cold air that's behind this low pressure system right here. And this expected to bring heavy snowfall in the higher elevations of California, Nevada, and even portions of Oregon, so you need to watch out in those areas. But moving forward, we of course see a large area of snow develop as early as the Thursday timeframe, where by late Thursday we see a pretty large area of snow. This includes Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, as well as Iowa. They all get involved with moderate to heavy snowfall, especially closer to the rain snow line, where we see snowfall that's very heavy at times. And from this snowstorm, you could expect anywhere from 3 to 6 to potentially more like 6 to 10 inches of snow in the more localized areas. So you want to pay close attention to this. We do see that there's just enough of a jet stream dip to induce an unstable environment, to induce a very convective environment where there's plenty of convective available potential energy for a large area of snow to develop by the late Thursday timeframe. And moving forward, we eventually will see the snow move into Milwaukee, Chicago, of course Minneapolis, and Des Moines are expected to get involved with this snowstorm, as well as it was pretty uncertain over the past several days where exactly the rain snow line will be located in. But at this point, it's pretty likely that the Chicago area will experience pretty much entirely a snow event, as it seems like there's going to be just enough of a northerly flow right behind this trough just off the western Atlantic that's going to bring the cooler air further southward, just enough to a point where we're going to see the temperature is cold enough in the Chicago area to receive accumulating snowfall. And this ridge that's going to be located just to the southeast of this low pressure system is going to weaken a lot more than anticipated, so that will weaken the southerly winds and enhance the northerly winds to a point where the cold air should linger around, to the point where Chicago should get involved with accumulating snowfall in the areas sort of southward in the Great Lakes as well as the Northeast. But moving forward with the forecast, we're going to see this same very weak ridge that was located just to the southeast of this low pressure system move to the west, and we're going to see this ridge build a little bit stronger, and that will create more of a northerly flow for this low pressure system to move just slightly further southward, to a point where the cold air will move southward as well, where a large portion of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan should get involved with heavy snowfall. Like I said, anywhere from 3 to 6 to 6 to 10 inches of snow. And moving forward, we could even see snowfall move into New Jersey. However, it seems like this will be another one of those scenarios where the rain snow line will be just north of the Interstate 95 corridor. So if you're right up along the Interstate 95 corridor cities, at least anywhere south of New England, such as New York City and Philadelphia, this will mostly be entirely a rain event, at least for this current snowstorm, but it should be a pretty significant snow event for a lot of the interior Northeast, and even New England could get involved with some snowfall. And we do see that the low pressure system does strengthen quite a bit, but it's going to be well off the coast of Northeast at this point, so we won't necessarily see the worst of the impacts when the storm is at its strongest strength. So we might see some snow showers in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, but I wouldn't say anywhere any more than, let's say, 1 to 3 to 3.6 inches of snow at this point, because this low pressure system is going to be well off the coast and not bring a lot of moisture to the Northeast at this point. However, I want you to pay attention just so west of this low pressure system, we see a pretty significant clipper system at this point move southward, and we do see a large area of moderate to heavy snowfall, as of course when we see a clipper system come off the Alberta coast of Canada, we see very cold air behind it, because a lot of the winds coming from the British Columbia area of Canada are very cold. They're coming from the lee side of the mountain, so it's going to absorb a lot of that cold air, and there's going to be plenty of strong winds because the pressure is so high right up along the mountaintop, to a point where that air sinks, creates a lot of wind, and that wind interacts with the Arctic air to bring that Arctic air further southward to create enough of an unstable environment for our next major snowstorm to develop for the Midwest as well as later, potentially the Northeast. So this is going right around the 78-hour mark. So this is right around 3 days out. So I'll say at this point, this forecast is pretty certain for the northern Midwest. You will experience a significant snowstorm out of this low pressure system, and we're going to see just enough instability for a pretty large area of snow to develop. However, we will see that the storm will weaken temporarily as it moves into the Midwest because the jet stream will sort of straighten out compared to what it was experiencing, because this ridge that's going to be just to the south of it is expected to weaken quite a bit, where we're going to see another low pressure system just to the south of this develop in the southeast. So that doesn't create and so that weakens a ridge, and that doesn't create enough of a strong southerly flow to create an unstable environment for this storm to develop. However, this storm is expected to re-strengthen because a ridge is expected to develop along the west coast. And when we see a lot of ridging along the west coast, that typically means that it's a lot more active when it comes to winter weather for the eastern half, because since we're seeing so much ridging along the west coast, that creates a strong southerly flow that forces a jet stream further northward and a strong northerly flow on the eastern side of this ridge for the jet stream to dip southward along the eastern half of the United States. And that's what's expected to happen, which will steer the low pressure system southward, and we could be in for quite a significant snowstorm for many areas of the Northeast, where we see that the European model wants to bring quite a strong nor'easter to the Northeast by right around the Tuesday, March 14th timeframe, where we see the pressure drop down to 972 millibars. And to put that in perspective, that's almost equivalent to a Category 3 hurricane. So of course you should expect gusty winds if this storm were to come for fruition, and we see very heavy snowfall throughout many areas of the interior Northeast. And not only that, this is expected to linger because the European model expects that a negative tilt to build. And while at first it might seem like the eastern, at least the bigger cities along the Northeast, such as Boston, New York City, and Philadelphia, would mainly experience a rain event with this trajectory, take a look again in the more long-term future. We do see that not only the storm lingers, but this storm will develop more of a negative tilt, which will enhance the northerly winds, which would bring the snow further southward into the bigger cities and the more populated areas of Northeast. So New York City and a lot of Connecticut wouldn't be out of the woods in this scenario, because the low pressure system lingers for quite a bit, and we see pressure drop down to 970 millibars. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see coastal flooding with this low pressure system if this were to come for fruition. So this is definitely something to pay close attention to over the next several days. What really will determine if we're going to see major nor'easter develop is really how much ridging will build along the west coast, because that'll determine how strong northerly winds will be as the storm moves eastward, because the stronger northerly winds, the stronger the jet stream dip will be for a higher unstable environment to develop, for a more powerful storm to develop. We're going to need to wait and see how strong exactly this ridge will be as the storm continues to head further eastward, because that'll determine how much instability there will be. And of course, we're going to need to pay close attention to the ridging as well, just the east of this low pressure system, because if the ridging is a little bit stronger than anticipated, that would reduce the jet stream dip, and that would of course create change the trajectory of this storm, where this would bring more snow to the western portions of, let's say, Northeast rather than the eastern portions. So going to be a very close forecast. I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days, but this could be quite a significant snowstorm. So I want you guys to at least be aware of this scenario. But the European model, if this storm were to come for fruition, would expect well over a foot of snow over a large portion of upstate New York, and even western New England, like Massachusetts and northwestern Connecticut, could get involved with over a foot of snow, and maybe 6 to 12 inches of snow in northern New Jersey as well, and New York City could get involved. And this is a long duration event because, like I said, the European model expects such a strong jet stream dip to a point where we're going to see a strong negative tilt with the jet stream. So there's definitely something to pay close attention to over the next several days. And the GFS model, however, is showing a very similar forecast, which makes me believe that this storm could come for fruition, and we could be in for a major nor'easter by next week. Now let me show you guys a GFS model scenario. The GFS model is showing a very similar forecast to what the European model is stating at this time. Expects just enough instability in the midsection of country for a very similar area of snow to develop. The trajectory is pretty certain. So in Chicago and in those surrounding areas, you need to expect around 3 to 6 to 6 to 10 inches of snow from this storm, because it is likely at this point and continuing to move forward. We even see the snow move into portions of the Northeast, and the forecast, like I said, is very certain with this snowstorm, so you want to pay close attention to this in the Northeast and prepare accordingly, because like I said, you're expected to receive anywhere from 3 to 6 to 6 to 10 inches of snow in certain areas. But moving forward with the forecast for this Clipper system, what's interesting is that the GFS model is also very confident, just like the European model, of bringing a pretty significant snowstorm to the Northeast. However, the location is fairly different, where we see more of the snow focused in right around the New England area rather than the areas further southward, where we see the storm develop a little bit later, because the GFS model isn't as confident that the jet stream dip will be as significant, and we won't see as much ridging build along the west coast to create enough of a jet stream dip for this storm to develop faster. So this storm won't reach its peak intensity until it's well further northward, closer to Maine rather than let's say southern New England. So more of the snow would impact New England rather than the western Northeast or even southward into the mid-Atlantic states. So very interesting forecast, but they both agree that there's going to be a significant jet stream dip by next week that could create a major nor'easter. And I will say that it is becoming increasingly likely at this point a nor'easter. Some type of nor'easter will develop, but we're really going to need to determine which exact track it takes, and that will depend on how much ridging there will be along the west coast, as well as just the east of this low pressure system. I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. Let me show you guys the 500 millibar height anomaly to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly throughout the United States. You should expect anywhere from very strong ridging to weak ridging as we approach later during the week. And if we were to continue to move forward, we will see the low pressure system eventually move into the Midwest. It should weaken the ridge, but this ridge just to the west of this low pressure system will become stronger. So as a result, we're going to see a stronger northwesterly flow that will push the low pressure system a little bit further southward for the areas in the Midwest, at least for the first snowstorm to experience snowfall. But moving forward into the second snowstorm, we do see that the ridge weakens significantly since this trough is very broad. And what's interesting is that thanks to the ridging, we're going to see the enhanced amount of ridging we're going to see just to the west of this low pressure system that will create more of a northwesterly flow that will push the low pressure system further southward. And depending on how strong this ridging will be just to the west of the storm, that will determine how much cold air will move into the Northeast, how much instability you experience, and as a result, how powerful of a storm you will experience. I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days, because this is a key determinant in terms of the trajectory as well as the strength of this storm as we approach next week. So make sure to stay tuned for more forecasts in the future regarding these next two snowstorms. So if the European model's snowfall forecast was correct over the next 7 days, we would see that this will be a very active week when it comes to winter weather, where a large area of Minnesota and North Dakota experiences 6 to 12 inches of snow. This extends into Wisconsin as well. Chicago, Iowa, southern portions of Michigan, and northern portions of Ohio and Indiana all experience over 6 inches of snow in this forecast, and it becomes even more impactful in the Northeast, where we see a large area of over a foot of snow, which includes southern upstate New York, a large portion of Massachusetts, where Boston is right on the border between experiencing maybe 3 to 6 to maybe over a foot of snow. A large portion of Connecticut would experience heavy snowfall, and southern Vermont and New Hampshire as well, and even northern New Jersey would experience over a foot of snow in this scenario, and New York City is very close to that as well. So this is definitely something we're going to need to pay close attention to for northern Northeast, because you could be in for a very active week when it comes to winter weather. Now let me show you guys a GFS model snowfall forecast. What's making this forecast a little bit more certain when forecasting a storm that's beyond the 5-day mark is the fact that the GFS model is also in pretty good agreement regarding the snowfall accumulation forecast with what the European model is saying, where we see a lot of the same areas experience 6 to 12 inches of snow, including the Northeast, just not as heavy snowfall, where the European model is more confident that at least a larger area of the Northeast would experience over a foot of snowfall, while the GFS model is more leaning towards 6 to 12 inches of snow, but this would still be a significant snowstorm either way. So all throughout the Northeast and in the Midwest at this point, especially southern Midwest, you need to prepare because it is likely you will experience a major snowstorm by the end of this week, and then by next week, a lot of the Northeast could be in for a major nor'easter that could bring strong winds, coastal flooding, and of course heavy snowfall. Another thing I want to point out in this video is look at the North Atlantic oscillation at this point. We're deep in the negative phase where the threshold is at the -2 area, which is quite low. And when we see a negative North Atlantic oscillation this strong, that creates a higher possibility of stronger jet stream dips thanks to weaker jet stream winds, which allows the colder air to have more of a chance to meander further southward. So this would enhance the possibility of a major nor'easter developing with so much instability, and overall would enhance the possibility of significant snowstorms moving through the northern United States. So thanks to this negative North Atlantic oscillation, we're more likely going to be in for more active winter weather for the next week or so. So here's my snowfall forecast over the next 7 days. It's pretty much basing this off of what the European and the GFS model are currently stating. And we do see that a large area of the Midwest and Northeast would experience over 6 to 12 inches of snow. This forecast is certainly subject to change because we still have 7 days to go before this potential nor'easter could develop. So I'll keep you guys updated regarding any major changes in the forecast. But I will say that for this first snowstorm, it's pretty much inevitable. It'll impact the Midwest at this point, so you need to prepare. And for the second nor'easter, it's becoming likely at least some sort of nor'easter will develop. It really all depends on who will get impacted and where exactly the heaviest snow will fall, but it is becoming increasingly likely that a powerful storm will develop by next week as well. But anyways guys, thank you guys for watching, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content.